Hilchas Nizkei Mamon Perik Shvi. Now the dinners we're about to learn, we mentioned it before, that a tam, in order, the chi of shmira for a tam is a shmira mu'ula, which means a shmira which is yichel lamed, even for a ruach she'ena matzuya. A shenkin for a mu'id it's enough. We learn out from a pasuk, v'lei yishmeranu, as long as there was a shmira pchusa, as long as there was a shmira b'pnei ruach matzuya, even though it was not able to stand for ruach she'ena matzuya, you're potter. You're potter for the mu'id. Is nachamol. A tam, a behemoth tama that was mazik, so if there was a shmira mu'ula, so then you're potter. Masha'inkin, if there was a shmira pchusa, so you're still chayev. Masha'inkin, a mu'id, over there, as long as there was a shmira mu'ula, a shmira pchusa, you're also potter. That's this din. That's this halacha. Perik shvi. Sher shekoshe bailam misere, a share that the bailam tied it with a misere, with a rope, which is called a shmira pchusa, which means it's yichel lamed b'fnei ruach matzuya, but not b'fnei ruach she'ena matzuya, or v'noal b'fon of karoi, which again karoi means karoi for a shmira, which is a shmira pchusa, it's able to stand for a ruach matzuya, and lepel v'yotzes v'hizika is im tamu mishalem chotzinezik. If it's a tam, he's mishalem chotzinezik, even though he already made a shmira, but since it was only a shmira pchusa, so therefore he's mishalem chotzinezik. However, v'im mu'id, if the behemoth was a mu'id, is potter. Shenema, he doesn't even pay the tzad tamus. In other words, there's an mandama that says tzad tamus when came in medis, that a behemoth that was once a tam and then it became a mu'id. So for the tam you need a shmira mu'ula, and for the mu'id you need a shmira pchusa, but only for the tzad mu'id shabei. Masha'inkin, the tzad tamus shabei, also needs a shmira mu'ula. In other words, the tzad tamus when came in medis, but that's not the halacha. The halacha is that for a mu'id, as long as you made a shmira, even if it was a shmira pchusa, you're potter. Im hoye mu'id potter, shenama v'lei yishmeranu. Hoyim shamri potter v'shamru uzeh. That's talking about something that became a mu'id. V'chein im hizik b'davar shu mu'id lei mitchilasei, ken she'achal dvarim horuyim lei yeshava b'raglav b'derech hiluchei. So as long as there was a shmira pchusa, which means a shmira for a davar, which is yichel lamed, a shmira which was something which yichel lamed b'ruach mitzuya, so therefore it's potter l'shalom. Is nachamol a tam, if there was a shmira that's only a shmira pchusa, a shmira which is yichel lamed b'ruach mitzuya, so that's not enough, and memela you are mechuyev to pay. Masha'inkin a mu'id, as long as there was a shmira, even if it was a shmira which is only yichel lamed b'fnei ruach mitzuya, you don't have to pay. Halacha beis. Now hoyim mu'id lekeren yamin, ve'enim mu'id lekeren smel. You have a metzias of a behemoth that's a mu'id only lekeren yamin, and it's beferish enim mu'id lekeren smel. I'll call upon, and that's the metzias of this din, that this behemoth, we know that with the keren yamin it's a mu'id with, and with the keren smel it's not a mu'id. And then the yotza achash shamri koroi. Now there was a shmira pchusa, and v'nogach bein bekeren yamin bein bekeren smel is mishalim chotzinezik. So this is like a chiddush, even though the l'chura we said before that for a mu'id the shmira pchusa is enough. So l'chura, when it was a mu'id lekeren yamin, so l'chura for the keren yamin, l'chura for shmira pchusa is enough. So the din should be l'chura that if it was l'chura, the pashtus would have been that if it was neger b'keren smel, so it was a tam l'gabi keren smel, so memela, so it has to pay a chatzinezik because l'peil the shmira doesn't help for the tam. Masha'inkin, if it was for the keren yamin, so over there was a mu'id. So since it was a mu'id lekeren yamin, so l'chura for that was enough. The shmira pchusa, so l'chura should be potter. Nevertheless, we're saying no, that b'negeh the keren yamin, he has to pay a chatzinezik. They say so over here we're saying kilo that tzat tammuz b'mkei me'imedis, the tammuz shabei, that he has to pay. And on that the Mefarshim bring that the reason is because saf kol saf this behema, since lepel the behema is also a tam for the keren smel, so there's a chiv shmira mu'ula for the keren smel. So since there's a chiv shmira mu'ula for the keren smel, so therefore even if it was negech with the keren yamin, and for that was l'chura enough a shmira pchusa, but since lepel it also needed a shmira mu'ula, so therefore you're responsible as if it's the tzad tamus. It's not so clear to understand this inyan, because manav shach, if the Rambam holds that tzad tamus, you don't say b'mkei me'imedis, so the chur over here is also, there's no tzad tamus b'mkei me'imedis. You're saying no, that bishleim, if there's mashal, there was a tam and it became a mu'ed, so now that it became a mu'ed, so there's only a need for a shmira pchusa, and once there was a shmira pchusa, you're pater legamri. Mashenkin over here, since there's a muad l'keren yamin, and it's not a muad l'keren smeil, so mitzad the keren smeil, it still needs the shmira mula. So Memela said, if you made only a shmira pchusa, so even when it was mazik with the keren yamin, you have to at least pay for it as if it would have been the keren smeil. That's this. I'll call upon that's the halacha. The havana of the halacha maybe needs further hasbara, but that's how they're being masbet. Since over here, he also needs a shmira mula mitzad the keren smeil. So therefore, for the keren yamin, you have to pay a chatzin nezik. Halacha gimel behema shechavla ba'adam ben bekavana ben shalei bekavana is im tamehi mishalem chatzin nezik megufa im uedesi mishalem nezik shalim. That's the din. In other words, the fact that the behema was chavla ba'adam is the same din. That tam is mishalem chatzin nezik megufa and amud is mishalem nezik shalim. Upoter min hasheves umin habeishes umin hatzar umin haripui. By a person, Adam shechavel ba'adam, the din is that he has to pay, besides the nezek, he also has to pay tsar, ripu, sheves, and beishas. But a behema that was chavel ba'adam, there's no extra din of this tsar, ripu, sheves, and beishas. He only pays nezek. That's what we're saying. Upatim na sheves, na beishas, na tsar, na ripu. Sharbod dvar melo lechive b'amteira leba'adam shechavel b'chavere. Adam who is chavel b'chavere over there. There's a chiv of these arba dvar, these extra arba dvar besides nezek. Avul behema shechavel ba'adam hareze kimishehizik mumenei is just like if a person was mazik someone's mammon. So there's no din. The din of nezik tzari pishavas and beish only adam shechavel ba'adam. So it's the din adam. Masha'inkin over here, since the behema was chavel ba'adam, is hareze kimishehizik mumenei sheini chayev el chatzin nezik b'lvad. L'chore chatzin nezik lav dafka. In other words, if it's a tam, he's chayev chatzin nezik, and if he's a mur, he's shalom nezik shalom. But either way, he doesn't pay anything other than the nezek. Lefichach, sheri shebiyesh poter, which l'chorah you have to understand what's the chiddush over here. The Rambam just said that a share doesn't pay for boishes. So the learned pshat that the chiddush over here is that even if he was just mavayish, till now we said that a behemoth that hizika only pays nezek and he doesn't pay the other things, which includes boishes. What happens if a behemoth was just mavayish? So now that we just said that it's keilu in the chayav. No, it's kamisha zika mamena. So mamela, you don't reckon zach with in a basis. Lefichach sheri shabish potter. However, the bish hu ba'atzmi, person himself was mavayish without, even if he didn't do any nezek, is chayiv kamisha is bar. Like we'll learn hilchas chevel mazik. Over there, the Rambam is going to discuss the dinim of basis. Now, v'sheri shechavel ba'aviv beimei, shehid le godish chaveri b'Shabbos is chayiv b'nizokim. Now there's a din of kamli b'drabmene. When a person does a maisa, through that maisa is chayiv misa, and he's also chayiv b'nizokim. So the din is, since he's chayiv misa for this maisa, he's part of him nizokim. So therefore, when a person l'mashal is chayiv b'aviv b'imei, so a person that's chayiv b'aviv b'imei is the chayiv misa for being chayiv b'aviv b'imei. So even though normally if you're chayiv on a person, there's a chiv tashlumen. But a chevel b'aviv b'imei, since there's a chiv misa, so memela he's part of tashlumen. Al derezeh, if someone's madlik, someone's godish chaveri b'Shabbos. So normally for being madlik, someone's godish yechayiv. But over here, if you're doing it b'Shabbos, memela yechayiv misa for being madlik the godish. So mitzat kamli b'dram, you're potter. That's only talking about if you did it. Mashenkin, if your share did it, so there's no chiv misa. There's no chiyuv misa of a share that was chavel b'aviv b'imei, and there's no chiyuv misa for a share that was hidlik gadisha b'Shabbos. So mainly there's the regular din of the chiyuv share, and since the share was mazik, so the fact that it was mazik b'aviv b'imei, or the fact that it was mazik and mazik b'Shabbos is it doesn't make a difference because lepel the share was mazik and there's no chiyuv misa, so mainly there's no din of chavel b'drabnei. Now, so the Rambam is saying this behemshech, and in the Gemara they say it behemshech. There's two dinim. But l'chura this din is pashut. L'chura there's two separate dinim here. One din is that there's a chiv nesek tzar ripu sheves ubeishes, and that's only a adam hachevel b'adam. A share that's chevel, there's no din of the other things. The only chiv is nizikin. There's only chiv nizikin. There's no chiv of tzar ripu sheves ubeishes. That's din number one. And din number two is that when a share is mazik, since there's no din of kamle b'drabmenei, so memela he's always chayiv. So why when an adam is mazik? So there could be a mitzvah of kamli b'derab menei, memela he's potter. Mashenki when a behema is mazik, so memela it's l'chura pashut that there's no din of kamli b'derab menei, he's potter. You have to understand even what's the chiddush of this din. It's number one. And also, what's the connection? It's not a chiddush of the Rambam that he connects the two. In Gemara, they connect the two. But Lepeil, you have to understand what's the chiddush of the din, that a share that was chavel ba'avim b'imei or b'Shabbos is chayev, l'chur it's pashut. And also, how is that connected to this din that a share is potter from arba dvarim? L'chur it's a separate din. The chiyuv of arba dvarim is only by adam hamazik, and then there's another din that a share sheyizik. There's no din of kamlev d'rabban. I don't understand the connection. Halacha dalet. Hamachnes sheirei lechatzar balabayis lebershus unegoche sheirei shebalabayis enoshlach kalbei. The din is potter. Because Lepel, since the nizik came into the rishus of the mazik, and the mazik, the behema was mazik, so he's potter. V'im nogachu sheirei shebalabayis, and if the share that you brought into the rishus of the balabayis was negech sheirei shebalabayis, is the hoya tam mishalim chotzi nezik, v'im hoya mu'id mishalim nezik shalom, ki din ha-negech rishus haram. So and this we learned really before, that the din of Karen, even Karen, Rishus HaNizik, is only Chayiv Chotzi Nezik. There's a mandama that holds that Karen, Rishus HaNizik, is also Chayiv Nezik Shalom. But that's not the halacha. The halacha is that a Karen, Rishus HaNizik, just like a Karen, Rishus HaRabim, is Chayiv Chotzi Nezik. So Al Derech Zeh, Karen, Rishus HaNizik, in other words, the person brought the Mazik brought the Karen into the Rishus HaNizik, and over there he was Mazik the Nizik, but nevertheless, he only pays a Chotzi Nezik when we're dealing with Karen. Halacha Hey, Nofal Leber Shebechotzer Zu, the hivish is meimov. So the person brought his share into someone else's rishus, and lepel, the share fell into a bear, and as a result of that, it was hivish is meimov. He ruined the water in the bear. So im hivish is meimov miyad b'shas nafila. As soon as he fell into the bear, the water got ruined. Is chayiv and Nizkei Mamon, because lepel, it comes out that his share, his mammon, was mazik that mine that by falling in. However, just like if he would have been negech something, so he's mazik it. So over here, by falling into the bear, he was mazik the mine. However, v'im acherzman, he fell into the water. The value of the water was fine, but then as the time went on, and the behemoth started decomposing, so that ruined the water. V'im acherzman. So it's part of why, because sharinasa asher takol lekeber. In other words, the way that the hezek happened, in other words, if the hezek happened directly, so it comes out that your moment made a maisa hezek. Masha'in came if the share fell into the bear. At this point in time, this share is a bear. The share became a bear. It became a hazard. In other words, this share could cause problems, and now lepel it caused problems. So just like if a person creates a bear, and then the bear is mazik, so the din is so that if this bear was mazik or adam, so he's chayv. Masha'in if the bear was mazik kalim, or things that are not an adam, not a share, if the bear was mazik a behema, or the bear, it says when a person makes a bear, so if the bear is mazik a behema, or if the person doesn't kill adam, but he's mazik adam, so he's chayv. Masha'inkin if the bear will be mazik kalim, so then he's spotted as a special ptur, share v'li adam, chamer v'li kalim. So Aldera's over here, since this share fell into this bear, at this point in time it wasn't mazik yet, so now it's being mazik not by passive, by standing there. And memela is something that's around it is becoming a hezek, so that hezek is an ephon of a bear. So memela, if it's an ephon of a bear, so memela is also under the rule of share v'li adam chamer v'li kelim. Memela is pater on kelim. That's this din nachamo. Nafal leber shebachotzer v'hivish es meimov. Is im hivish es meimov miyad b'shas nafil. As soon as it fell in, it was hivish es meimov. Is chayiv Nizkei Mamon. Is chayiv Nizkei Mamon. However, v'im acher zman, if it wasn't mazik miyad, it was only acher zman. Is pater why? Sharinasa hasher takol lekeber, because the share right now has a din of a takol. In other words, the share is not actively involved in anything. The share is a takol. It's causing hezekas by its being. So just like when you made a bear, so a bear creates a matzav, where that matzav could create a takola. And v'amayim harin kekelim, v'lemotzinu bear shechir beis hakelim. That's all talking about if we came in shalei b'rshus. However, v'mhichnas b'rshus, if lepel he had rishus to bring a share into someone else's rishus, so Baal HaSher is potter. So the Baal HaSher is potter for falling into the bear, when the share falls into the bear, because lepel he had rishus to be there. So Mamela, you can have tightness to him that he fell into the bear. However, the question is if the Baal HaRishus chayiv for the share, so v'im kibul ol Baal HaBayis lishmer, so then is ari chayiv b'nezek hasher shenafel leber. And if he was mekabel ol of lishmer, so then is chayiv for the Nizkei hasher shenafel leber, because lepel he was kibul ol of lishmer. And that we learned before, that there's a musik when a person takes something into someone's rishus, shalei b'rishus. So there's three ofanim. There's a ofen that you take it in shalei b'rishus. So then, if the person that came in shalei b'rishus got hurt, so he's not. So the Baal HaChotzer is not chayiv, and if he did damage to the Baal HaChotzer, so then the Baal Asher is chayiv. In other words, when the person that brought it in shalei b'rishus, that's one madrega. Then there's a madrega where he brought it in b'rishus, which then that causes that he shouldn't be chayiv for the nizokim which this behema causes in this chotzer. That's the number one. But on the other hand, lav davke, that the other person, the Baal HaChotzer, should be responsible if a zek has happened to the share, because he accepted upon himself that he should bring a share in. But on the other hand, he didn't accept upon himself to be worried to be watching the share. He's not accepting upon himself to watching the share. He only let him bring in the share. So as far as bringing the share is not a problem. But on the other hand, he's not mechuyev to be responsible for the share. And then there's another madrega where he was kibbul of also lishmer the share. So then, not only is the Baal Asher not responsible for the nizokim that share caused, but fakir, the Baal HaChotzer, is responsible for any nizokim that happens to the share that his bear caused. Halacha vav, hichnes sheri l'chatzar balabayis shlei b'rishus, v'hizik is balabayis, eshehuzik be balabayis. Person brings a share into the chotzer of someone, shlei b'rishus, and lepeil, either the share was mazik the balabayis, or the balabayis got hurt through the share. It was huzik be balabayis. The balabayis tripped over it. Oi shechafar b'chotzer beir sichlim aris. So he ruined. He made a bear in this chotzer which he was nichnas shlei b'rishus. So in all these cases, Baal Asher chayiv b'niskei chotzer. He's chayiv b'niskei chotzer. Now the pashas b'niskei chotzer means the nizokim of the chafar beir sichlim aris. But it also includes. It's obvious that he's also chayiv for being mazik the balabayas, or for the fact that the balabayas was huzik through the share, and also for the nizakim that he caused in the chotzer by making beis sichrim oros. In other words, any niskei chotzer, any nizakim that happened in that chotzer, whether it's to the balabayas through being mazik the balabayas, through the balabayas tripping over him, or through the fact that he made beis sichrim oros, all of these things the Baal Asher is chayiv. There's no matter share that came in shalei b'rishus. However, Baal Chotzer chayiv b'niskei aber. Knows even though the share went ahead and made a bear in this chotzer, but on the other end, right now, l'mashal, if the Baal HaChotzer was going to go and be mafker the chatzerei v'lei beirei, so it's going to come out that he owns this bear is his. So the pale, so even though he didn't make the bear was made through the behema, but the pale right now it's his behem, it's his bear. Whereas the Baal HaBehem is not mechuyev for the bear, because lepel there's a din of ish bear v'lei share bear. The fact that my share made a bear doesn't make me responsible for the bear that happened through the share. We learned that before also. An adam that makes a bear, he's responsible. A share that makes a bear, the bala share is not mechuyev for the bear that the share made. But over here, since this bear is in rishus of the Baal HaChotzer, and now if this bear becomes a mazik, so lepel, the Baal HaChotzer is responsible to fill up this bear. That's what he's saying. Oh, Baal HaChotzer, chayiv niskei aber. If this bear causes nizokim, l'moshe, how could it make nizokim? But if it was hifkir rishusei for the hifkir bear, so that bear is still his. The din is shari olav l'sosmis. Even though he's not the one that made the bear, but the bear was made b'rishusei, and the Baal HaBehema that made the bear had to pay him for making the bear, for the damages that he caused through the bear. But on the other end, the responsibility to close up the bear is not the responsibility on the Baal Asher. The responsibility is on the Baal HaChotzer. Halacha zayin. Hizik balabayis is Asher. Now, a person brought in a share into a Chotzer balabayis shlei b'rishus, and lepel, the balabayis of this Chotzer went ahead and was mazik the share. So it depends. Im izika shlei l'das. In other words, if he was mazik him unintentionally, in other words, he was walking whatever, and lepeli was mazik him, is potter shari emulei, because you say to the Baal Asher, lama nechnas shlei b'rishus, shli yadaiti ad sheshagakti b'chon. In other words, I made a mistake and I was mazik because I wasn't aware you were there, and memela, and you shouldn't have been there. Who gave you the right to be here? That's talking about if he did a shlei b'nas. However, v'mizika l'das, if the Baal HaChotzer went ahead and was mazik this share which was nichnas shlei b'rishus, l'das is chayiv nazik shalom mipnei sheyeshu rishus leitzim rishusei. The Baal HaChotzer has a right to take him out of his rishus. Aval hazika in the rishus, he has no right to go ahead and be mazik this share. So if a person takes his share into someone's chotzer shlei b'rishus, So again, so the din is that his share that caused that if he was mazik the balabayas, or the balabayas was huzik al yodei, or he caused that there should be beiris over there, so the bala share is responsible. Lepel for the beiris in the chotzer. So now the bala chotzer is responsible. If that ends up being something which causes hazekas, because hoyale l'sosmei. Now, if the balabayas goes ahead and is mazik the share, so it depends. If it was mazik him unintentionally, so the bala chotzer is potter because he says you shouldn't have been there, and I had no idea you were there. In other words, there was no reason for you to be there, and I wasn't aware you were there. Masha'inkin, if he goes intentionally in his mazik, so then he's responsible because lapel he has a right to send the share out, but he doesn't have a right to be mazik someone's property, even though it's in a place. Whereas the Seder Dvarim is you can't be mazik someone's share, even though the share finds himself in your property. Shalei Bershus. Halacha Ches. Shaman l'nezokim. There's a din that you estimate the value of l'nezokim to assess how much the person's damage did. Ketzad. Harei sheshavar keli shel chaveri. Bein hu bein behemte. Is ein emrim lemazik kach ata akeli hashavar. I'm not interested in the broken keli. You mazik take the broken keli. And v'shalim lezed me akeli and pay me for the entire keli. You take a look at the keli, you see there was a complete keli and now there's a broken keli. You see how much is the keli worth less. And if the mazik was a muad, so he has to pay him for the entire devaluation of the keli. So the chiddush over here is that even though the broken keli is not really the same like the original keli, but since the nizik owned the keli, he owned the keli, and now the mazik went ahead and was mazik the keli. So we say like this: what you owned is yours. That's still yours. And the mazik, he only has to pay for the damage he made. So whatever is left of the keli is still yours, and you also have to assess how much damage was done, how much the difference from what it was worth originally to what it's worth now. So nachamol. Kama pachas akeli midamav. V'neis nikol abchas im amazik muad. Echatzi abchas im hoyetam shnema v'amesi yalei. Lei means l'nizik. The nizik keeps the mess. It's just that the mazik has to pay for what it was different from when it was alive to when now it's a mess. Pchas hanavela ala nizik. The pchas ala nevela is on the nizik, and v'shvach hanavela. So halacha ches shaman l'nizokim ketzad harei sheshavar keli shel chaveira. Person went ahead and broke someone's keli bein hu bein behemte. If his behema broke, he broke. Is ein emel lamazik kach ata keli hashavar. The nizik could say, listen, I had a complete keli. Now I have broken pieces. I'm not interested in the broken pieces. I'm interested in my complete keli. So you take the broken. The nizik tells the mazik, you take the broken pieces and pay me for an entire keli. I don't want to keep the broken pieces and start having to sell them and deal with them. I want to have the money or the complete new keli. So on that, the mazik says to the nizik, no, that since lapel, this is yours, and so you have to assess how much is it worth less as a result of the hezek. But the original item, which was the nizik's, even though right now it's a broken item, still it belongs to him. Now, that is el mashal. If you kill the behema killed someone's behema, so now you have a behema which is an avela. So originally you had a live behema, and now it's an avela. So the chura, the nizik is going to say, I'm not interested in an avela. I'm interested in the live behema. You, mazik, take the avela, and you give me the money or a new behema. So the din is no. The din is that since that's the din, v'amesi alei, that the nizik knows the mazik only has to pay for the damage, and whatever is left, in other words, the nevela that's left or the broken kalim that's left belongs to the nizik, and the mazik only has to fill in whatever hezek there was. That's this din. Nachamol shama l'nezokim ketzad harei sheshavar keli shel chaveira ben hu ben behemte ein ein rim lemazik kach ata keli hashavar and v'shalom lezed me akeli ela ein din kama pachas akeli midamav. How much is it worth less in value? And v'nesli kol apchas im mazik muad. If the mazik would be a muad, so then he gives him the kol apchas. Echatzi apchas im hoyatam. Shenamar v'hames yalei. So we learn out l'nizik. So that's this din that hames yalei, that the nizik keeps the mess, and memela, and the mazik only has to pay to the nizik the difference of what the nevela is worth, as opposed to what the original behema was worth. That's din number one. Then the Ram continues, pchas hanevela So new din. Pchas nevela ala nizik. If the nevela goes down in value, so that going down in value is the responsibility of the nizik, because since the nevela belongs to the nizik, so mela now that the nevela was pchas, was nifchas from its value, so that's the concern of the nizik. The nizik loses from it. However, ushvacha nevela, if the nevela is mashbiach, so then is chil k'neisei nizik v'amazik, so then the nizik and mazik share in the shvacha nevela. There are type choice. Ketzad. Share shava masayim, shenokchu umes, v'arei nevela shava b'shas misa meya. So you have a behemoth that was originally worth 200, and now it's only worth 100. And a b'shas hamada bedin, but now when it comes to hamada bedin, is pocha, so it's even worth less. V'harei shava shmeinim, and now it's only worth 80. So originally it was worth 200, then it was worth 100, and now it's even after the negicha was worth 100, and now b'shas hamada bedin it's worth 80. Is eina mazik mishalim elameya im hayamud. If it was a mud, so since the damages was 100, that's how much he has to pay. Notice he doesn't pay, as we said before, he doesn't give him the 200. He says since the nevela is worth 100, originally it was worth 200, so memeli he has to pay him 100 if im hayamud, im hayatam. So then it's mishalim lechamishim migufi. That's the din, and the fact that it went down in value, that has nothing to do with the mazik. That since the nevela belonged to the nizik, so it was the responsibility of the nizik to go ahead and sell the nevela and make sure that the nevela doesn't go down in value. We're going to learn behemshech that it's only if the nizik knows about it, and there was chance for the nizik to know about it. But once it becomes the responsibility of the nizik, so any pras of this nevela is the pras of the nizik. That's talking about the pras. What about hishbicha nevela? Originally the behemoth was worth less, and now it's worth more. And varei shava b'shas hamada bedin meya v'esum, and now it's worth. And originally it was worth 200. Then b'shas the negicha, the nevela was worth 100. So l'chure he has to pay him 100. And now b'shas when coming to hamada bedin, the nevela is worth 120. It went up in price. The nevela, the price of the nevela went up to 120. Varei shava b'shas hamada bedin meya v'esum. So the din is. So we said before that they divide this shvach. The shvach is divided. So the din is mazik mishalim leitishim and hoyamud. If it was a muad, so it's mishalim leitishim. So that's why so knows if it wouldn't have gone up in value, he would have paid him 100. But since it went up in value by 20. So they divide this aliyah in value, and Mamela he takes 10. So Mamela the mazik only pays 90. And if it was a tam, is mishalim arboim v'chamisha migufei. So then he pays 45. Zeu shenemar. So we learn shvach hames yechidson. Now the way you get to 95 to 45, the pshat is because the Rambam holds that it's not the pshat is l'chura. You could think another Rishonim would think like hold that way. L'chura there's a svara to hold like this. That be'emes when it came b'shas ha'hezik, the tam was mechuyev 50. He was mechuyev 50 since it was 100. So now he has to pay half. So he has to pay 50. Now, b'shas hamada bedin, it's worth another 20. So l'chura, if it's worth another 20, so let's divide the 20, and the mazik should get 10 out of this 20, and the nizik should get 10 out of 20. And it'll come out that the mazik only pays 40, not 45. He pays 40. But the Rambam holds not like that. The Rambam holds that you don't divide ki'ilu neimar that the mazik owes 50, and now it went up in value 20, so you divide the 20, 10 and 10. And you deduct 10 from the 50. What you do is you deduct the 10 from the sum total of the hezek. Whereas the hezek was 100. And as a result of the fact that it was 100, he had to pay 50. And now there was a shvach. So we divide the shvach, and the half of the shvach we give to the mazik. We don't give him the shvach to the mazik. We give the shvach to the mazik to deduct from the dmei of the hezek. So Mela, since the hezek was originally 100, and now there was a 20, a shvach of 20, so we take half of that 20 and we put it on to deduct from the 100 of the hezek. Mela comes out as if the hezek was only 90. If the hezek was only 90, so he has to pay 45. That's the way the Rambam gets to the cheshbon of 45. Not everyone agrees to this Rambam, but that's how the Rambam comes to the cheshbon of 45. Mashal Shulchan Aruch it says it's pashut that if l'mashal, if it went up a lot in value, at kedei kach that the mazik is going to gain from it, there's nothing to talk about. In other words, if it's going to reach so much in value that the mazik is going to gain, so you don't take away. In other words, the mazik is not going to gain from the fact that he was mazik and then later on the nevela went up in price. Ad kedei kach that the mazik would be getting half of the nevela, half of the shvach of the nevela. L'mashal, he was mazik 100, and now the nevela is worth 300. So you're going to say 150, 150. So Mela the mazik is going to walk back with 50. That's brought down in Shulchan Aruch that doesn't happen. But according to the Rambam, it's machili and not shaychus to happen because the whole gather of the shvach of the nevela that you divide in half is only to take away from the dmei of the hezek. So l'mashal, if let's say there was a hezek of 100, and then lepel it went up in value. So if it went up in value 200 taka, if the nevela would have gone up in value 200, so then the mazik doesn't have to pay. The mazik doesn't have to pay. But it's the pashut that if it'll go up in value 250, the mazik is not going to get anything because the mazik was never really getting the shvach of the nevela. The mazik was only, the shvach of the nevela was only half using for the mazik to take away from the dmei hazik. Halacha Yudalev. Sher shava masayim, shenogach sher shava masayim, v'hifchise chamishim. He's not talking about that he died. He was talking about it was a share worth 200, there was mazik a share worth 200, and after the hazik, now the share, the hanizik is only worth 150. He was a v'chise chamishim. Now, ubishas hamad bedin, when it comes to the hamad bedin, hishbiach hanizik, now this share which was nizik became worth more, and by the yishava arba me'ezuz. Aber ve'ilule hanegicha she'vchise ha'yishava shmeina me'ez. In other words, lepel right now it's worth 400, and if not for the hazik, the fact that he was mafchasim, it would have been worth now 800. Is ben shepit me ben sheshavach meila, regardless of why it went up in value. But lepel, this is what happened: is ein noisen elikashas hanezik. Lepel, he doesn't have to pay him. He doesn't have to pay him for this fact. L'chura, he made him lose that gain that he would have had. And as right now it's worth 400. But had he not been mazik, it would have been worth 800. So l'chura, he was mazik him 400. Nevertheless, ein noisen elikashas hanezik, and he only has to pay for that 50. Now, even though the chura, we learned before that since it went up in value, so the chura, they share, the mazik and the nizik share the fact that it went up in value. But over here, since it lepeil mamish, taka went up in value. But had it not been nizik, and as when we're talking about the nevela went up in value, so over here has nothing to do with what it would have been had it been alive. Mashengan over here, had it been alive, it would have gone up in value 100 to 800. So in Mela, he doesn't really share the fact that it went up in value. So Mela over here, all you have to do is evaluate how much it was worth, b'shas, how much hezek was done b'shas ma'isa. You don't reckon how much he could have had. You also don't reckon the fact that it's now up in value. You just pay that original 50 and that's it. Ein nesen ele kishas hanezek. Now kichesh machmas hamake b'shas hamada bedin. When it comes to the hamada bedin over there, we see that originally he was mazikim and it was only a pchas of 50. But lepel later on, the pchas went on and progressed further, and it's worth even less. But the pchas shavamei, now it's worth 100. Knows the pchas now is worth 100. Knows there was an extra 100 besides the original 50 that it was peiches, or pchas shavamei maybe together with the original. But I'll call upon him. It went down in value from the time of the hezek to the shas of hamad bedin. So the din is nesli k'shas hamad bedin because lepel. In other words, even though the hezek happened slowly, but lepel, since he was mazik, and the Gemara says that the karnes that can cover in the share, knows he's still being mazik, and knows the effect of his original hezek, his effect of his original hezek is still in the share, so therefore he's responsible for this hezek. Now, normally by an avela, when the behem is an avela, so we say that the nizik, the pchas on avela is ala nizik, because the nizik should go ahead and sell it. Mashengan of the behem is alive, so you hope that the behem maybe will be nisrape, and therefore the fact that the nizik didn't sell the behem is not something which you have tightness to the nizik. And on the other hand, since this hezek continued further, so therefore the mazik is responsible not only for the initial hezek that he did right away, but also for the hemshech of this hezek that occurred between the maisa hezek and the hamad bedin. That's this din. But apchash avamei is neisen likashas hamad bedin. Halacha Yud Beis. Now hishbiach hamazik b'shas hamad bedin. Now the din is that the nizik, if it's a share tam, he only takes migufei. Now the question is, if the behema was worth a certain amount of money b'shas hazik, And now, b'shas hamada b'din, the behema is worth more. The mazik is worth more. So does the nizik entitle to take from the mei mazik also from what it went up in value, or only from its original value of what it was b'shas hazik? Hishbiach hamazik b'shas hamada b'din is imach mashepit mishavar. The reason why it went up in value is because the mazik, the owner of the mazik, fed it. So Mela has nothing to do with it. Knows the original behemoth that was mazik is really the original value. It's just that you added food to the behemoth. So Mela, the behemoth is worth more. Is eine mishtal mimeno mashayu shavu b'shashe. You don't know the money that the mazik invested in his behemoth doesn't become responsible for the hezek that he pays migufay. However, the behemoth be'etzim went up in value without giving it any extra food. So then it's mishtal and chotzinezik mimenu kulik kishas about the bedin. So it depends. In other words, if the behemoth went up in value, it depends how it went up in value. If it went up in value because you fed it, so Mimela, that extra that you fed it is not really responsible for the hezek. That's not called that you get migufay. But Masha'inkin, if the behemoth is still the original behemoth that it was, it just went up in value because the behemoth went up in value. Knows it was machmus ishbiach. So then, Lepel, since this is the behemoth and Mamela is mishtal migufay, so he can mishtal migufay the way he is right now. Halacha Yud Gimel Alamazik L'Trech B'Nevela Ad Shemamtzi Eisel Nizik. So we learned before that the mess is Yelei belongs to the nizik, and therefore as a result of that, the Pchas HaNevela is also on the nizik. We learned before, but nevertheless, it's the mazik's responsibility to see to it that the nizik has the nevela. Knows the nevela. If the nevela finds itself in a place where it's hard for the nizik to get to it, so then you don't start counting the Pchas HaNevela ala nizik from there on. You go ahead. And you have to see to it that the mazik should return the nevela to the nizik. Nochamal ala mazik l'treach b'nevela ad shemam tzeisel nizik ketzad ki nafel asher leberu mes is maila nevela min haber. So the mazik has to bring the nevela out of the bear and v'noisnel l'nizik, and he gives it to the nizik. V'achar kach shomal ipchas nevela. The words v'achar kach shomal ipchas nevela. As we learned before, we learned in halacha ches at the end of halacha ches that pchas nevela ala nizik. So when do we start counting the pchas and nevela ala nizik? That's only after the mazik returned the nevela to the nizik. Others learn differently. Pshat and Rambam. There's a rush that says that be'emes, that the person that has to really take the nevela out of the bear is the nizik. It's just that it has to be done with an agreement that the mazik is going to pay the nizik for any expenses that would be involved in taking the nevela out of the bear. That's the shittas harosh. But L'chure, Pashtus and Ram doesn't say that. Pashtus and Ram says that the mazik is the one that's supposed to take the nevela out of the bear, and he gives it to the nizik, and then the Ram says, V'achar kach shomal ipchas nevela. So the Pashtus, he means the lashon that he said before. At the end of Halacha Ches, he said, Pchas ha-nevela ala nizik. And V'shvach ha-nevela is they divide. So what's Pchas ha-nevela ala nizik? That if the nevela was nifchas from value, so it's the loss of the nizik. But when does that happen? Only after the mazik returned it to the nizik. So we learn out that the yoshev l'ba'olav v'hames go together. That also there's a chi of yoshev. Kesed yoshev l'ba'olav v'hames yalei malamed shu chayev lahoshev es anavela, and also v'esapchas shepachas min achai l'nizik. He has to give side the kesef. The kesef, depending if it was a nizik or a mazik. In other words, by the bear, he's always a mu'et. But Lepel, we learn out from the other mazikim, also this din of kesef yoshev l'ba'olav. But over there, it depends if he's a mu'ed or a tam. So maybe he has to pay the kesef plus also the mess. Malamed shu chayev lahoshev es anavela v'esapchas shepachas min achai l'nizik. And b'mhoya tam chatzi apchas k'mei shebiyan.